morning, everyone. I'm Dinah, and we are about to get today's workshop ready, and we're going to go ahead and get started. I know that a few of you may still be joining or in the process of joining, but in the meantime, we can certainly go over some housekeeping items. So first of all, I just want to welcome everyone to today's live workshop, and just to double check that you can hear me, if you could say hello in the chat window and just let me know that you can hear me okay, that would be great and very helpful. And then we'll be able to go ahead and move along. I just need a few confirmations. All right, so thank you so much. Okay, so the first person I'd like to introduce to you today is my colleague, Latasha. She is our editor, and she is actually in the chat box. And she is going to be helping me here today with today's workshop and answering any questions that you may have along the way. We expect quite a few people, of course, and so we just want to make sure that we're able to go ahead and answer your questions. Hopefully, I will be able to answer those questions as we progress through today's workshop, but just in case, of course, Latasha will be there. If there's something that we can't answer for you, then we'll certainly get back to you with an answer. Okay, so a few things I also want to point out in regards to the Crowdcast platform is that right below this video window, you'll see that there is a few buttons. The very first one is a button that says ask a question. And if you have any questions that you want to make sure, it doesn't get lost in the chat conversation, then go ahead and you can put your questions there. Again, it's very likely that I'll answer your questions along the way, but we can always take a look at those at the very end. And then also, again, if we can't answer your question through today's session, then we'll come back to it. Next to that button that says ask a question, there is a button that says polls, just again, right below this window. And if you can go ahead and click on that, you'll notice that there are two questions. The very first one is going to ask you, what your background is or what your position or role is for work. Most likely you're going to be a teacher or an educator of some sort, since we are going to be focusing on the educator's point of view for this webinar, but you never know, there could be some other individuals who might be interested in attending. So, and sure enough, of course, we do have a few people that are selecting others. So if you would like, you can certainly go ahead and provide some more details about who you are in the chat window. And, it's always nice to know if you want to share those details. So it does look like we have some teachers, some librarians or media specialists, as well as maybe some higher ed professors or maybe even a student in education or a graduate student in education. So great. Thank you so much for attending. Also, we want to know what your experience is with Easly. Some of you may have used it a little bit or may not be familiar with it at all. And so, we want to go ahead and make sure we have a good understanding of that. So thank you so much for answering that as well. It looks like we have a few people who have never used Easly before, so that's good to know. We'll certainly cover the basics. We have a few people that have used it a little, and hopefully maybe we can provide you with some new things to learn about when it comes to Easly that you can start to incorporate. And okay, great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to go ahead and answer those polls. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start going through our content here today, and I'm going to launch into a very brief presentation about some basic key steps that you should consider incorporating into your lesson plans and things you should consider when you're working with students to create infographics. We get a lot of feedback that sometimes educators are a little scared to just, try the idea of creating an infographic. Maybe they don't have any design skills, and so while they might be interested, they might just be hesitant. Luckily, of course, Easly is an easy-to-use design tool that does allow you to go ahead and create beautiful infographics with limited design help. And so it's a great way as an educator to get familiar with something like this, as well as also be able to allow students to create their own infographics. And whether you choose to give it to students as an option, as a tool that they can use as part of a project or an assignment, it's very easy for them to use as well, even if you're not very familiar with the tool. It's something that they can kind of get started with. So we'll walk you through some basic things of creating an infographic, and then I'll walk you through the Easily Design tool and get you familiar with the basics of that tool, things that you should know as well. There is a lot more that I can share, of course, and we have other resources. So if you would like to continue to learn more after today's webinar, I'll also provide you with those resources as well. Because we get a lot of questions about pricing when it comes to Easily. We'll also provide you with some details about our Educator discount at the very end, as well as details on just pricing if maybe you just want to use it as an educator by yourself, not necessarily with students. I do want to point out that signing up for Easily is absolutely free, and you can use all of the basic tools without paying a penny. But if you find that you just need to get a little bit more out of your experience, get more icons, get more templates, get more graphing tools, then you may want to consider upgrading to Easily Pro. Okay, well, great. It does look like we have quite a few people that have joined last minute. So we'll get them launched into our presentation here. I'm going to go ahead and close down my window, and I'm going to go ahead and make my presentation a little bit bigger for you guys. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and get started here. So infographics are just a wonderful way for your students to be really creative first, of course, and it's really fun for students to consider designing information that they need to share. But it really goes way beyond that, and it really is a life and career skill that they can use in the future, whether they have to do a presentation to some of their coworkers or potential customers in the future, or maybe they go into marketing and they need to figure out how they can design content that's very informative but engaging. And so this is a good introduction to some skills that they can learn in the future. Infographic creation lets students think critically about a subject, a data set, or a complex idea, whether they're actually looking at infographics or they're building one themselves. And it really is something that they can do across any subject area. So teachers of any subject area can incorporate infographics into the classroom. Now, just because I'm curious, what subject areas are you teaching? Go ahead and put that into the chat window. It'll be good to know what subject areas that you're focusing on. So go ahead and start submitting that. So again, I'll keep moving along, of course, but it's also a great way for students to improve their technology and research skills. There is some level of research that's involved in creating an infographic. It also allows them to evaluate how valid content and source material is when they're doing that research. It's very easy for students to just go on Google now and get information, but is that information trustworthy? And, are they using authoritative content? So that's also a point of that they can go ahead and focus on. And I'm not sure if your schools have access to a media specialist or a librarian, but they are great resources to partner up with on a project like creating an infographic. I won't read this entire slide to you, but I hope that you're seeing that there are so many different benefits of allowing your students to create infographics. Okay, and it does look like we have teachers in technology, social studies, Spanish, business education. That's wonderful. I think infographics is a great way to be able to incorporate that into some of your business lesson plans. Health and wellness, digital literacy, wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. As you can see, there's people from all different subject areas, and I do think that you'll be able to benefit from that. Okay, so just in case you're not familiar with infographics, what is an infographic? It's going to be a visual image used to represent information or data. And an infographic, a lot of times people think of it as a visual image that has a lot of numbers, data, graphs, and while it certainly can be very quantitative, an infographic can be qualitative as well, and it can be completely qualitative. So depending on, whatever subject area you're teaching, you can create an infographic that is qualitative in nature or quantitative, or a combination of both. And when you get your students to do an infographic that does combine both, you're really expanding their visual and data literacy skills there. So for a Spanish teacher, of course, you might find that you might create an infographic that might be qualitative, but maybe for a teacher who is doing a business lesson plan, that infographic may be a little bit more quantitative in nature. Okay, so in a separate webinar, I go into detail about the 7 common types of infographics. Since we're focusing on education and using infographics in the classroom, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but I would love to guide you to a YouTube video that we've created that goes into detail of the 7 common types of infographics. And this is a great thing to explain to students, because when you're thinking about infographics and how you might organize your information, sometimes students just kind of want to jump into a tool and start designing and just putting their information in there without much thought of organization. But depending on their message and what they're trying to relay in an infographic, they may want to consider all of these different common types of infographics to organize it. So is it a process that they're trying to convey? Then maybe something like a list infographic that lists the steps out might be helpful. Maybe they're trying to compare two things that are similar or compare two things that are different. Maybe it's a pro-con type of infographic. Then something like a comparison might be very valuable. And so there are many different types of templates and examples of all of these types of infographics. You may even find that there might be a combination of these types of infographics in one infographic. So it's very possible that there could be some type of a timeline involved along with a data visualization in the same infographic. So in this presentation here, we will be linking to this presentation in our blog as a follow-up. So you'll actually have a link to this video, but I do want to point out that on our YouTube channel, you'll find a link to this video, and you'll certainly be able to just go to all of our videos that have tutorials on how to use Easily and tips on how to create infographics, and you'll be able to find that video very easily. You'll see here that it's just this one. I'm going to go ahead and pause this because I don't necessarily want it to play. But this is the video for 7 common types of infographics. You can easily have your students take a look at this if you're introducing infographics in the classroom if you would like, or have them watch it at home and maybe have a discussion in the classroom for a more flipped classroom situation. Okay, so I'm going to keep moving along here because I got a lot of steps that I want to walk through here in terms of what you should consider incorporating into your lesson plans when you are working with students and creating infographics. Okay, so the very first thing that you want to do and the first thing that you want to get your students to do is to get inspired. And so the best way to do that is to maybe select a handful of infographics that you think are good representations of excellent infographics in the real world, and pull them up in the classroom and walk through the elements of infographic design. What story is the author trying to convey? Review the data and the graphs, the charts, the style of the infographic. What type of a mood is it setting? Take a look at the colors. So there's a lot of things that you can discuss with your students. And another thing that you can do is you can ask your students to go ahead and do a search online for infographics, or even in a magazine that they might have at home. It's very possible there might be a printed form of an infographic in an article of a magazine that they might have at home. And so, of course, the easiest thing might be to do, of course, to just hop online, but ask them to find an infographic that is of interest to them based off of their own interests. There are going to be infographics on every single subject matter possible. So if your student is interested in fashion, then ask them to find an infographic pertaining to fashion, or maybe they're interested in gaming, or maybe they are looking at careers or colleges. Maybe there's an infographic there. So they can certainly go ahead and find an infographic that's of interest to them and analyze it themselves. Why do they like that infographic? Is it the color? Is it the style? Is it the design? So this is a great way to get them excited. And the great thing is that students may already be familiar with infographics. They just may not know the terminology and all of the elements involved in creating an infographic. Okay, so the next thing you want to consider is finding a topic. So you certainly want to provide some guidelines, of course, to your students, but ultimately let them choose their topic, just like you would for any other project that you may have. And I highly recommend that you make a visit to your library. And of course, if you have a media specialist or librarian, they're great to work with. They'll be able to guide students to very specific databases in specific subject areas. And if you have other maybe resources that you typically use on the web that are credible and authoritative, guide them to those resources first. Students always want to start off with the authoritative material for their research. And if they're finding content on the web in a blog article, challenge them to go to the ultimate original source for data and content. That's really where they want to get to. Also, encourage students to narrow their topic down as much as possible. So there is limited real estate on an infographic canvas. And so when a topic is too broad, students will tend to want to just put a lot of information, and their infographic is going to get very, very crowded, and it's going to be hard to read. So encourage students to narrow their topic down as much as possible, probably even more so than they normally would for a paper that they might be writing or a research project that they're working on. And Marina, yes, I worked with librarians and media specialists for many, many years in a previous position, and I know the valuable content that's in libraries. And it's just infographics are, the libraries are a great place to start when creating infographics. So the next step is research. Again, go back to those library databases and guide your students to those credible resources on the web to conduct their research. So, they may start in the library to generate ideas. A lot of those databases have a lot of keywords they can search through, maybe some topic pages in those databases where they can start broadly and then narrow it down. But ultimately, they're going to want to continue to do that research. Those databases also provide curated content to stats, data, numbers, important dates that they need to incorporate into their infographic, and have your students gather as much as they can. And then depending on their ultimate message, challenge your students to find a story to tell with the information and the data that they've gathered. And so their ultimate goal is to, of course, convey some type of a story and engage the reader of their infographic in the information that they're sharing. Now, if you're working with younger students, then you can still create infographics without necessarily doing a lot of heavy data. I know that there are databases that are geared towards elementary school students. And so, you use your best judgment, the level of your students, but you certainly can, create infographics at varying levels depending on the background of your student. And again, you can always start with something easy like a timeline for an infographic if you're working with students, and that's another easy way to get started if you're not going to do a lot of the heavy research. Okay, again, very much like a paper, you're going to want your students to create that outline, and this is going to save them a lot of time. Again, students want to just kind of jump into that design tool and start pasting their information into that infographic, but it'll save them a lot of time if they take the time to create an outline like they normally would for any research paper or a topic paper that they're writing. They're going to want to build out their title and really get a good understanding of what their topic is and ask themselves, is the content that I'm putting in this outline related to the topic? If it's not, they need to take it out. Again, there's limited real estate on that infographic. They really need to pare this down. Now, they'll want, instead of an opening paragraph, they're going to want to provide a brief introduction to the topic, 1 to 2 sentences. 1 to 2 sentences might seem easy, but when you're trying to really provide context to a reader in an infographic, it really pushes a student to be very concise in what they're looking to share. And so that sentence or two will go somewhere near the title on your infographic and is going to provide that context to the reader. They're going to want to organize their main points in an outline, provide examples, facts, any information or data to support that topic, their argument or a message that they might have, and then summarize and reinforce their argument at the very end. Depending on their purpose for the infographic, they may also want to provide a call to action. If their topic is on environmentalism and recycling, then there might be some type of a call to action there. So also ask your students to think about whether or not a call to action is necessary in their infographic. Okay, so when we're talking about design, this is where Easly comes in, and there may be some other tools out there available to you to create infographics, but if you really want to use an easy design tool that doesn't really require a steep learning curve, then Easly is going to be something for you and your students. But a few design tips that you may want to keep in mind is that let your students play around with the design tool of choice. Give them a little bit of time in the classroom, maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever amount of time you think is necessary for your students to just play, make mistakes, play with colors, play with tools, play with the images and the icons and the graphics to just get familiar with the tool. Then when they go home, they don't have to waste that time figuring out the tool. They can just go ahead and start designing and putting their information in there. If needed, use a template. It helps students organize their content again. There are various templates like comparison or timeline templates, so you can customize them by color. That's a great way to start with your students. If you want your infographic to be of a certain size for your students, give those directions. If you want it to only be a printable letter size infographic, then make sure you direct your students and let them know that it has to be that size and it cannot be any bigger. You can certainly set the sizing in Easily to be able to do that. Tell your students to limit their color palette. I know color is a lot of fun, but sometimes students want to put too much color into their infographic, and sometimes that doesn't help with the consistency of their style. Also, font can be a lot of fun, but if it's not legible, then the whole purpose of the infographic is out the door. If someone's not going to be if someone's not going to be able to read it, then they're not going to be able to be informed of all of the valuable information that you're sharing in an infographic. So keep it to 1 to 2 fonts that are legible. You want to keep your imagery simple. There are a lot of images that may have too much detail in them, and that is very distracting to a reader. So simple imagery is very helpful. And then also be consistent with style and make sure that they leave white space. Again, students want to crowd a lot of information on an infographic, but then you lose flow and a reader doesn't know how to move across the page in a logical way. And so white space is a good thing to keep in an infographic. Okay, so at this point in time, what I'd like to do is quickly walk you through Easly's design tool and point out a few things, and then I'm going to come back to my presentation and point out a few more tips. And if needed, I'll maybe go back into the Easly tool, but I think it's an appropriate time to jump into this. So this is the home page of Easly. It's been open for a little while, so let me just go ahead and refresh it. Again, you can sign in and register for free. I've already logged in. If you're interested in an upgraded version, which is what I have access to, and you'll see some features here that you may not have on your free version if that's what you have, but it really is a big difference in terms of the content that you have. So when you're signed in, you'll see that there are a bunch of visuals. As you can see, I use Easily to build out my presentations, but you'll have an entire library of content that is available here. Now, students can save all of their visuals in that library, but right below that, you'll see that there are public visuals as well as templates that we provide, and you'll be able to use existing templates as a starting point, or you can always start from the very beginning and just start with a clean canvas. Before I go ahead and move along here, I do want to point out that there is a button here to set a custom size. So if you're working with a very specific size that you're looking to work with, then you can certainly go ahead and tell your students to start here and set the size of their canvas in that way. I'm going to go ahead and start fresh, and you'll want to just bear with me here because whenever I do these webinar presentations, sometimes the Easily Design tool slows down a little bit, and it's because of me just being on the webinar. You will definitely not experience the little slowness that you might see here as I start to build something out. But you can always clear your canvas. You'll see some easy directions here to get you started. You can walk your students through these. It just shows that you can just drag and drop icons onto your canvas, but I'm going to go ahead and clear this because that is the easiest way to get a clean canvas here. But even if you're in this clean canvas, you'll see that there are various templates, and the templates, if you have a basic account, you'll see a few basic templates available, but if you have a pro account and you upgrade to pro, you'll see that there are resume templates, timeline templates, a process. So I'm going to go ahead or even a comparison. There's many different types of templates to explore. I'm going to go ahead and select timeline as an example, but here are just some different ways that students can convey a timeline in an infographic, and these are templates that they can go ahead and just plug their information on and then customize the colors as they need to. So this is a really good example. One project that I think some business courses might do is that, they might do some research on a company history. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull this infographic down, which is a template, and it's actually a company timeline. So if you're asking your students to do some research on a corporation or a business and they need to provide some type of a timeline of that business, then, this type of a template might be really nice. Of course, students can go ahead and customize the text, enter, I can just double click on this text here and I can go ahead and modify this very easily. And again, this is slow on my end. Okay, I'm just going to put a little bit in here because it's working a little slow on my end. But as you can see, I can go ahead and double click on any of the text already in the template. I can start plugging in my information. You can, of course, certainly delete content. So if you don't want some of this content here, I can delete anything that you see here simply by clicking on any of the objects or text that you see, deleting it. And then if you need to add any content, then you can click on our text button here, and you can add bullets, a numbered outline, an alpha outline. You can add body text. You can add a title. So I'm just going to pull down a header. It's just a drag and drop feature. And you'll see here that when you do that, the instructions are here for the student and yourself. Just double click to change the text. So you double click on it and you'll get that window again where you can go ahead and customize it. So it's very easy to go ahead and do that. I also want to point out the objects button here. So if you want to go ahead and add some content here, you can certainly go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and just pull this down And you'll see that there are different categories. So you can find images of education, data, e-commerce. There's so many different things. It's nice to kind of go through all of those, but one thing that you can always do is just enter a keyword for an object. So you can go ahead and do that, and I'll do that shortly. But one thing I like to point out is this button here, this category for people, and you'll see that there are, again, I have an upgraded pro version, so I have about 38 different pages worth of different images of people that I can go ahead and drag into my canvas. And depending on how I want my infographic to look, there are just so many different styles that I can work with. So, you know, a student really has quite a few options here. So I'm going to go ahead and come all the way up to the top, and I'm just going to pull in image here. Okay, so of course this isn't necessarily going with my topic, but I just like to show different possibilities here. And all of our images, you can resize them, and you don't have to worry about pixelation. You know how sometimes you might grab an image and you need to enlarge it for whatever reason and it just starts pixelating. These are all images that are optimized so that if you enlarge an image, it will still look good on your canvas. So as you can see, I've gone ahead and made this pretty large here, and it will not pixelate for you. Okay. You can also do a lot of things. You can rotate an image if you need to. A lot of stuff you can do with that. Okay, so I'm going to keep moving pretty quickly through some of these tools here as well, but I just want to make sure I'm pointing out some of the basic things that you should know about the Easily Design tool. So those are the objects feature. If you do a trial of Pro, which you can actually, right underneath this video window, there's a green button that says click here, and you know that click here for a free trial is an opportunity for you to check out easily the upgraded version if you want to check out what's available. But gosh, I mean, if you're doing something in food, you know, if you're a health teacher and you want to do something on the topic of food, there are just so many objects and icons pertaining to food that you could consider using. Let's see, I'll just go ahead and this is always the fun part, because if you have a basic account, you know, you don't always see what's available with all of the icons. So I always like to showcase some of these in my webinar. Okay, so again, we got a lot of pages here for food, many different styles for food that you can work with. Got cupcakes, hot dogs, French fries. You know, you've got the healthy items. You've got veggies, and you know, if you needed to take a look at, do a search for an item, there's a search box. So it's a very quick and easy way. If you already know you're looking for a banana, then you can enter a banana and get all images that might have a banana incorporated into it. So this search feature here is very, very helpful. Okay, for media, we also, with the upgraded version, provide you with some stock photos. This is nice because students don't have to worry about making sure whether or not an image that they might be pulling off the web is something that they can use. The stock photos in here can be incorporated, and they're royalty free already. We've already done that search for them, so students can just focus on the research aspect of that. Of course, if they need to find something outside of Easily, then they'll certainly want to take the proper steps to make sure that the images are images that they can use. If you're using library databases, images off of there, you know, you can go ahead, as long as you provide proper credits on there, and if they're being used for educational purposes, you know, those images are great. Work with your media specialist or librarian to make sure that those images can be used, or check with them with what images can be used from those databases. Okay, so from here, it's just a matter of selecting an image and pressing select, and you can go ahead and incorporate a stock photo if needed into your infographic. And you can, again, resize the stock photo as needed. And, you know, it starts off pretty large here, but you can go ahead and make some changes. I'm going to delete that for now. Okay, you can also incorporate media. So if you want to incorporate a YouTube video, the video will need to be in a YouTube format. You're going to have to paste the YouTube URL here. So if you have a YouTube video that you want to use in your infographic or a presentation, then you can go ahead and build it in here. And you also have the ability to upload files. And so if you have images that you have downloaded and saved that you'd like to use, you have the ability to upload those. If you are, for whatever reason, doing an infographic for your school or your class, you want to put school's mascot on there, you have a picture of their school's mascot or your school's logo, you can go ahead and upload those images and incorporate those into the infographic. Backgrounds, of course, with the blank canvas, it starts off white, but in some of the templates, you have different colors, but you also always have the ability to change the background. Here is a standard grid, but people overlook this More button, and this is where students can take a look at the full color spectrum, and then if there are specific color codes that they're using, then they can go ahead and enter those in here and incorporate those colors. Okay. The drawing feature is a great way for students to be able to provide flow in an infographic, and make connections between information. So they've got lines, steps, arrows, waves of a line that they can go ahead and create. So I'm just going to go ahead and use the step as an example, and this might be a little slow on my end here. But as you can see, I am making a little step that I can make a connection to between content. I can make that adjustment. Now, of course, it starts off as red, and students may want to just go ahead and leave it as red, but this is something that can be changed and matched up with the color scheme of your infographic. So I went ahead and I just changed that color. I can also change the weight of this line to match it up a little bit more, and I can even change the stroke. So if I want something like a dashed line or a dotted line, I can go ahead and do that. So as you can see, that looks much better than just leaving it as a red stepped line that you can go ahead and make changes. Okay, so again, I am just kind of, going across some of these tools. You'll probably want to take a little bit more time in making sure that your design is really nice. But as you can see, these are tools that you can just pick up very quickly yourself, and then also be able to teach your students how to do this. You'll also have access to shapes. So if you have shapes that you want to incorporate, like a circle that you want to put behind an icon, you can certainly go ahead and do that. There's various shapes you can work with. You can just choose your shape, drag and drop it. You have your text box, which I already discussed. I do want to spend a little bit of time on this button here. This is the charts feature. If you have the free version, you have access to a bar chart and I believe it's the column chart. But when you upgrade to Pro, you have access to pie charts and a few other charts that you can incorporate into your infographic. And again, this kind of gets into more of that data literacy. Maybe your student has pulled some raw data from their research and they'd like to incorporate it into their infographic, and they'd like to build out a really nice looking chart. I'm going to go ahead and pull down the bar chart as an example. But again, it's a matter of choosing the chart you want, dragging it onto your canvas, and you'll see that it is defaulted with some information, and I'm going to move it over to the side so you can see it because I've got a lot of stuff going on here in the infographic. But once you pull it down, what you'll do is you'll double click on the chart and a window will open up, and this is where your student can plug in the data that they have found and customize the chart. So by default, the colors are pink and blue, but all they need to do is click on the color and they can start to make changes to the bar chart. and that will change the color for them. So I just changed that pink to kind of like a teal green, dark teal green, and then I can maybe do this one a little bit lighter. Okay. And so you can change your labels here. And again, by default, it says January, February, March, April, just to kind of showcase what you would enter here. But, you know, encourage your students to go ahead and make these changes. It's just a matter of clicking into the box and making the changes. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, again, this is slow for me here. I'm going to delete that. So as you can see, you can go ahead and just change the content, and then also the numbers. If you need to make changes here, you can edit the numbers. Say I want to just shorten it, abbreviate it. January. Okay. You also have the ability to add more rows to your chart, and you can remove a row if you need to. So you can do that as well. You can always reset your chart and just start blank. But I always like to show, you know, those examples so you get a feel for what's available. You can also click on this options button, and because actually, let me just go ahead and, because I reset it, I'm gonna start again so you can actually see the options here. I really like to show this chart tool because, again, I think it's something that gets overlooked, and I think it can be a really valuable teaching tool and a good opportunity for your students to build out a chart into their infographic. Okay, so I'm going to move over to the options because my fields are already entered in there. But now you can actually see the chart. So anything that you customize will be adjusted. So if you change these numbers, these will all adjust. You can change the font size. You can change the font on your infographic to match up with the font that you're using. Of course, you do want to make it legible, so I do kind of suggest keeping it to something like Arial, something that's easy to read. You can show a legend, show a label if you'd like, and then also change the you know, the currency on here if you want to do a percentage, or you want to do US dollars, or just leave it blank as without any changes there, then you can do that as well. I show the labels, you'll see those labels pop up on here. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and update these changes, and you'll see, of course, that the changes will be here in my infographic. I didn't do a whole lot, so you're not going to see them, but you know, if you want to test this out, I highly recommend it. Now, once it's on your canvas, you can go ahead and stretch it out a little bit as needed, and you can go ahead and move it around your canvas as needed. Again, I got a lot of stuff on here, so kind of makes it hard to see. How about I do this? I'll just go ahead and going to make some room here. I just dragged my cursor over some of this content so I can go ahead and quickly delete it. Of course, it's slow. Okay, so I'm going to make some room for my chart. Move it over. Okay, of course, we'd want to take some time to do this, but as you can see, I went ahead and adjusted my chart. I can enlarge it and fit it right into my infographic. So play around with that. With the free version, you have access to a couple of those, but when you upgrade, again, you get all of these different charts to work with. Okay, so I think that's all I wanted to show in terms of the tools. I'm going to come back to the downloading and sharing features. But before I go ahead and do that, I do also want to point out the resizing feature. Going back to being specific in the size of your infographic, there is a button here that will allow a student to go ahead and resize their infographic to what your requirements are. So if you're trying to keep it to a letter-sized image, something that you know will be able to be printed out if you need them to print it out, then you can stick with something like an 8.5 by 11 inch sized infographic, letter size, and students can go ahead and work with that. And then at the very bottom, it's a little hard to see, but you'll see that there is this little arrow in the corner that will allow you to stretch and resize your infographic as well. I have something over it, so I can't do it. It doesn't look like that on your end, but when you drag this little arrow, you'll be able to resize your infographic in that way as well. That is in pixels, and so if you're giving dimensions in pixels, then you can do that. But I think for students and for your purposes, the easiest thing is just kind of sticking with one of these sizes here. Okay, so let me go back to my presentation here. So we talked a little bit about design, and we walked you through the Easily Design tool. I hope you saw how easy it was to start using it with students. Again, you may want to take a little bit of time on your own just to get familiar with it. Give your students some time to play with it as well. Okay, I'm going to just take a moment here, check in with Latasha. Latasha, I think you've had an opportunity to address a lot of the questions. Awesome. Okay, you're already confirming that you're good. So we're going to keep going here. Okay, so another thing I want to talk about is citing your sources. You're going to want to encourage your students to cite their sources in their infographic. There's different ways to do this. You can give students the choice, or maybe you just want them to be consistent just for ease of use on your end. They can list the source URLs throughout the infographic near the information and data that they're presenting. They can also go ahead and list sources at the very bottom of an infographic. If there's a lot of research involved and there's a really long list of sources, then you may want to encourage them to create something like a Google Doc and provide a link to their Google Doc on their infographic. And so readers will be able to link out to those sources from their infographic. And I do want to go actually back into Easily, because I do want to point out that you can go ahead and hyperlink text in an infographic. So I'm going to go back up to the very top just because it's the easiest thing to do here. Okay, and you'll see here for the text or even an object, when you click on an object or click on the text, you'll see this menu bar again with many different options on how to customize that text. But you'll see that there is a hyperlink option, which will give you the opportunity to go ahead and add that hyperlink. So when students are adding their sources, you can ask them to hyperlink their sources, hyperlink a link to a Google Doc if that's where they're putting their sources, whatever you think is easiest on your end. A good thing to do when you're starting to discuss infographics, ask students to take a look at how other infographics will provide their sources on there. You know, they may see most of them do provide their sources at the very bottom. So, but again, if they're working with limited amount of space, you may have some different instructions for them pertaining to the assignment. Okay. So those are some recommendations on how students can cite their sources. And you're going to want to ask your students to review, proofread their infographic. There's a lot of things that they can get wrong in an infographic. They may spend so much time on that design, but really the content is the most important thing. And if they're working with a lot of numbers, you know, it's very easy to misplace a decimal point or a comma and relay the wrong information. So ask them to check their spelling, check their digits, commas, decimal points, and review that. Also ask your students to maybe exchange work with their peers, or maybe ask them to set up one-on-one time with you, like in office hours, where you can take the time and quickly review their infographic. They can get some feedback, constructive feedback, and, you know, ask them to take that time to improve their infographic, make final edits, and any needed changes. There is always, always, always room for improvement on an infographic. So there should be at least maybe 1 to 3 things that they can go back and adjust. Okay, and so lastly, what they can do, or what you can ask your students to do, is they can present their infographic as part of a presentation that they might have, or maybe they might have a presentation and the infographic is some type of a handout that they refer to as part of their presentation. You can also embed infographics into maybe a classroom blog, or maybe you have a class website and you want to showcase it in that way. So in that way, you're publishing it online. You can also ask students to share their infographic with friends or their family, or with teachers in another classroom. So there's many different things that you can do for them to be able to showcase their work and get their message out. So let's talk about how Easly will help you do this. So again, I'm going to go back into my design tool, and I'm going to show you a few tools that are available to you for this. Okay, so going back to Easly, at the very top in the black and white banner, you'll see that there are a few options, and there's a few things that I want to point out here. Now, as a student is working on their infographic, Easly periodically saves their designs, but if they are jumping out of Easly and want to make sure that their visual is being saved and the last changes that they made, we highly recommend that they click save. As you can see, this was saved at 10:45. So any changes that I would have made like in the last few minutes is not saved. So I'm going to want to go ahead and press save. We provide a number, so you don't have to necessarily add a name to a visual, but students can always go ahead and put social studies infographic in there, whatever they may want to name it as. Okay, so that's one important thing I'd like to point out. Another thing that I'd like to point out is the download feature. And there are, if you're using the free version, you have the ability to download a low quality JPEG image of your infographic. So that is one way of just downloading and saving an infographic image of what they've created that they can go ahead and share and attach however they need to turn in that assignment. If you are upgrading to Pro, then you have access to a high quality image that can be printed up, and you also have access to being able to download a PDF version of that infographic. So that comes with the upgraded version, but you always have the ability, even with the free version, to download a low quality image view of that infographic. Now, in terms of sharing your infographic, you have the ability to share your infographic through email. You can grab a shareable link, and you can also view in a browser. So you may just ask your students to share their infographic through a shareable link. This button here will just provide a direct link to a link that you can click on, and you'll be able to see that infographic. Here is the embed code, and I'll just take a few moments here to showcase that. So if you're asking your students to embed this into a website or a blog, or maybe you're going to do that, then here's the embed code. You can ask your students to grab the embed code of their infographic, send it your way so that you can showcase it in a blog. So there's many different ways to go ahead and publish that infographic, and hopefully you'll find one of those things is right for you. And that's it. If you have any questions about downloading or sharing, you can always reach us through our support. You can chat with us by clicking on this chat button. We'll be able to assist you with that. Okay, so we've covered a lot there. Okay, so that's all I have for you. I hope that that was a good walkthrough of some of the steps you'd like to consider. This presentation here are some direct links to some additional resources for you to consider if you are going to explore infographics a little bit more. I have a link to our help center. I have a link to our blog where we showcase other educators using Easly as well. You can kind of get some ideas from there. I'm happy to announce that we just published a free course on Udemy, open to anyone. It's called Crash Course in Infographics with Easly. You can sign up. It's a very quick, short course. The videos are only 35 minutes long, or a total of 35 minutes, so you could easily get through the course well within an hour. Feel free to share it with other educators if you want to introduce Easly and infographics to them. There's a Crash Course in Graphics ebook, Infographics in the Classroom ebook. And I also want to announce that we are COPPA compliant. And so I did provide a link to the privacy policy if you have any questions on that. This will be posted on SlideShare and then uploaded into our blog. We will be sending an email out to everyone who registered, and a link to all of this information will be available in our blog as well, but I did want to provide that here to you. Okay, so if you are interested in going pro, again, it's very affordable. It's only $3 a month, and there are thousands and thousands of icons to choose from, as well as all of those graphs and charts that I showed you, along with additional templates. I just wanted to showcase some of the icons that are available to you that you can incorporate. You don't get to see all of these in the basic version, so I always like to showcase. As you can see, there's icons for pretty much any subject area that you're working in. And so if you are a business user or an individual user, it's going to be $36 a year per user. But we do have a discount for educators. It's 50% off. So if you're a teacher and maybe you want to upgrade to pro just for your own personal educational use, then contact us directly and you'll be able to get a coupon for 50% off, and it's only $18 a year. That's very affordable, and you get unlimited access to creating infographics and all of those icons and charts that you can use. If you want to extend the pro version to your students, then you can actually upgrade to pro for the full amount, $36 a year, but that will allow you to extend that pro account to 30 students. And so 30 students will have access to the free version or the upgraded version of Easly if you pay that full price. So it's a great opportunity for students to also have access to all of those icons and templates and charts and graphs to work with. Again, contact us directly. I will send out a follow-up email for that because we always get questions at the end, but you can email me now if you want, Dinah@Easly, and I'll be sure to respond. I also want to point out that if any of you will be doing any presentations, conference presentations, professional development, PDs, or you just want to introduce this to your colleagues, you're welcome to contact me directly. You're welcome to use my presentation as a starting point. I can send you the slides to work with so that you can customize the slides on your end. We also provide an EdTech coupon where we extend the upgraded version to you and your colleagues to test out for a limited amount of time. So let us know. I believe Latasha may have mentioned it in the chat window. If not, I'm sure Latasha can provide you with her contact information, and she'll be able to go ahead and get you those details as well. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your attention. I see that you had a lot of good questions coming in through the chat window that Latasha was able to answer it. Feel free to connect with us here at Easly, either through Twitter or Facebook. You can connect with us on Twitter at EASEL_LY, or on Facebook, EASEL.LY. And, we really look forward to having ongoing conversations. Let us know if you have any success creating infographics. We'd love to hear those stories. You'll see that we connect with quite a few people on Twitter through that. So let me go ahead and see if there are any questions in the chat window, but I know some people have to get going at this point in time. So for those of you who do have to get going, thank you so much. And I hope you have a lot of luck in creating infographics. Okay, let's see some of these questions. Okay, so yes, I'll be sharing a link to the slides later. Thank you, Greg. We'll be posting those in SlideShare as well as on our blog, and we will be sending a note out through an email. Okay. Oh, and I'm just noticing audio was not great earlier, but hopefully it was okay once you refreshed your browser. Okay, I guess all the questions were in the chat window, so that's good to know. All right then. Well, it looks like a few people are still on. If any of you are just interested in sharing, what you are looking to use Easily for, feel free to go ahead and do that in the chat window. We'd love to hear those examples or ideas that you're already generating after today's webinar. But for those of you that have to hop off, thank you so much, and stay in touch.